There is something strange about old video games. Sometimes you come back to them years later and realize they really were that good, and sometimes you realize you were just 16. League of Legends is a pretty good example of that. For a lot of players, old League wasn't just a game, it was something you played after school. You stayed up way too late, you argued with your friends over who got mid, and somehow a random Tuesday night turned into a 5-hour gaming session. You remember those precious memories, your first pentakill, that one champion you used to main. You remember the feeling, but you probably don't remember all the terrible games. And that's exactly what makes League of Legends Classic so interesting, because now, years later, we get to go back. But is it actually worth it? Or is this just nostalgia doing all the work? I think it's worth a shot, but not because old League was perfect. The first thing you notice when you play Classic is the pace. Modern League is fast, really fast. Champions are more mobile, fights happen almost instantly, and sometimes you get killed before you've even figured out what happened. Classic feels very different. There's more space, more time to think, and more time to make a mistake. You don't have 5 different ways to escape every bad situation. You just have to stand there and deal with the consequences. And that changes how you play. Positioning suddenly matters a lot more. You have to think about where you are standing, when you move forward, when you back away. And sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is simply being in the wrong place. And that feels pretty good, because instead of thinking, what the hell just happened, you can actually think, yeah, that was my fault. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Classic. The slower pace changes more than just teamfights. It changes the small decisions too, like buying items. In Modern League, the game gives you a lot of help. Recommended items, clear build path, a pretty good idea of what you are supposed to buy. Classic is much more hands-on. You look at your gold and you decide what to do with it. Maybe you buy a small component now, or maybe you save for the bigger item. Maybe you stay for one more wave, or maybe you recall before things get dangerous. These aren't huge decisions, but because the game moves slower, they start to matter more. And that's one of the things I enjoy about Classic. The game gives you room to think. It doesn't constantly force you to keep up. Then there is the champion pool. Classic has far fewer champions than Modern League, and obviously that's not always a good thing. Your favorite champion might not be there yet. Some matchups don't exist, and there's simply less variety. But there's a huge upside. There is no man. There is less to learn at once. Modern League has an insane amount of information. You need to know what dozens and dozens of champions can do. Their abilities, cooldown, strength, their weird little interactions. And even after years of playing, you can still see something and think, wait, that does what? Classic doesn't have that problem to the same degree. With fewer champions, there's less information coming at you all at once. So if you haven't played League in years, it can be much easier to get back into. You don't feel like you're learning an entirely new game. It feels more like you're slowly remembering one. Classic reminds you of things you completely forget about. You open the shop and realize you actually have to think about what you are buying. You look at the champion and their abilities aren't designed around having 12 different ways to escape. You walk across the map, you realize just how big it feels when everyone isn't dashing across it, and suddenly you remember why the old game felt slower. Not slower in a boring way, just less chaotic. You have time to watch the lane, watch the minimap, wait for the right moment, and that changes the entire feeling of the game. This is important. Classic isn't a perfect copy of Season 3. It's better to think of it as a collection of the early League experience. There are ideas and systems from different points in that era. Some champions are missing, like Udyr, Mordekaiser. Some things have been modernized, and some of the old friction has been reduced. So, if you're expecting to launch the game and suddenly wake up in 2012, that's not really what happens. And honestly, that's probably for the best, because nostalgia has a funny way of editing reality. We remember the amazing games, playing with friends, discovering the game for the first time. We don't remember the terrible builds, the endless stalemates, the games where nobody could end, or the times when we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. We remember the feeling, not every detail. And Classic can't recreate the exact life you had 10 years ago, because part of that nostalgia comes from being younger, having more free time, having your friends online every night, talking to them on Discord, experiencing League for the first time. No game mode can bring all of that back, but it doesn't have to. Because Classic is fun on its own. This is the part I think gets overlooked. You don't have to believe that old League was better. You don't have to hate modern League. You don't even need to be nostalgic. Classic can still be fun simply because it plays differently. The map feels bigger, positioning matters more, movement is slower, mistakes are easier to punish, and you have more time to think about what you are doing. Modern League can sometimes feel like an action game. Classic feels more like a strategy game, and I think that's the real difference. It's not really old League versus new League, it's two different versions of what League can be. Of course, it's not perfect. Classic has problems too. The champion pool is limited, some champions are stronger than others. Matchmaking can be messy, some games go on for a very long time, and some of the older systems can feel rough when you are used to modern League. Support is a good example. Modern support has a lot more tools. Classic can feel much more restrictive, and if climbing the rank ladder is the main reason you play League, Classic might not be enough to keep you around forever. And that's okay, because I don't think Classic is supposed to replace Modern League. It's another way to play it. If you used to play League years ago, I'd say give it a shot. You don't have to grind it, you don't have to play every day. Just play a few games, try a champion you remember, play with a friend, see if something clicks. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But at least you'll know. And I also think modern League players should give it a try, because Classic shows you what League feels like when you take away a lot of the modern complexity. Less mobility, fewer champions, slower things, more emphasis on positioning, more time to make decisions. And even if you end up preferring Modern League, you might finally understand why people miss the old game. So, is it worth trying? I think it is. Not because Classic is perfect. Not because Modern League is bad, and definitely not because everything from 10 years ago was automatically better. It's worth trying because it offers something Modern League doesn't really offer anymore. A slower, more deliberate version of League. A version where positioning matters, where item choices matter, where the map feels bigger, and where you actually have time to think. And maybe that's what people really miss. Not the old graphics. For me, it was the old graphics. Not the old items. Not even the old champions. Just the feeling. The feeling of playing League without constantly trying to keep up. So, if you have been wondering whether League of Legends Classic is worth trying, give it a shot. Play a few games. Try something familiar. Play with a friend. And see how it feels. You don't have to decide whether it's objectively better than Modern League. You just have to answer one question. Are you having fun? And if the answer is yes, then I think Classic has already done its job.